Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us and tuning in to our 2019 Candidate Interview Forum for the candidates for City Council for Tampa and the mayoral election. The Chamber is focused on policy, not politics, and while we don't endorse candidates, we want to make sure that our members and our viewers are educated on the candidates and the issues that they will be voting on. We're excited to have Tampa City Councilman Harry Cohen, candidate for mayor for the city of Tampa, with us here today. Harry, thank you for joining us. We're glad you're here. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for having me, Bob. And you know, I always appreciate the many programs that the Chamber sponsors and puts on through the course of the year. I've joined you on a few benchmarking trips, and those have really been eye-openers in terms of understanding the challenges that this community is going to face in the next decade. We are going to grow probably about 500,000 to 700,000 people in the next 20 years, and we've got to be ready for it. And we've got to invest in the infrastructure that's going to support keeping the growth going.
Terrific. Good. Thank you. And thank you for your commitment to serve our community and be a part of this process. Okay, first question. As we record these interviews, we are just a little under 6 weeks away from Election Day. Now that we're in the final stretch, can you give us a brief 30-second or less update on your campaign and what message you want to deliver to the voters in this final stretch?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to do that, Bob, because I think that the message that I am promoting in this campaign is really catching fire in this community. And that is that we have got to make major investments in infrastructure over the next decade. Investments in transportation infrastructure. I was a big supporter of the All for Transportation initiative. You can go to my website, harry2019.com, where I have a 4-page, very detailed transportation plan that I unveiled literally the week after the referendum passed. I also have a major commitment to flooding and stormwater infrastructure. That has been the major issue that I have championed on City Council. Investment of $250 million in our stormwater infrastructure, a tripling of the maintenance of our current infrastructure. That's very important. And then finally, affordable and attainable housing infrastructure. We clearly are on our way to a crisis in this community in terms of people being able to afford to live near where they work. And I feel that we need to address that very aggressively.
Okay. On that issue, our next question is on workforce housing. What zoning or policy changes would you support to address the growing workforce housing needs in Tampa?
Well, I think that there's an awful lot of things that we can do, and part of that is making up for the loss of money that we've been receiving over the years from the federal government. Those funds have really dried up, and we have to get much more aggressive if we're going to continue to address this problem. The major thing I would want to look at right away is whether or not when we give bonus densities to developers, we can add additional incentives related to affordable housing. Right now, there are an awful lot of criteria that qualify a developer for bonus density. I think we ought to give more weight to affordable housing as a piece of those projects. I think that would make it a really attractive alternative, particularly as the West River area develops.
Okay, very good. Our next question is on the budget. The city's budget is one of the mayor's biggest responsibilities. Some state that the budget and the economy is going to anticipate an economic slowdown during the next term. How would you prioritize spending during the slowdown, and where could we anticipate potential cuts in the budget or tax increases under your leadership?
Well, I would say, first of all, that I don't think that this area is going to experience a slowdown, certainly not in the need for city services. With the number of people moving here, and I would say that the tax bill is going to push even more people toward Florida than ever before, escaping the high taxes in the Northeast and the Midwest. I think that we are poised to continue to grow. And I think that the fact that the Amendment 1 additional homestead exemption did not pass, I think that that $6 million a year that we were assuming we were going to lose, that we're now going to have, is going to help us balance the budget. I also think that what we ought to do to keep the budget in balance is see if we can get the legislature to, we've lost money from the community, the communication services tax, which was a tax on landlines that did not transfer over to cell phones. And I think that we need to close that loophole, because that is a millions of dollars in revenue that has evaporated from the city in recent years. If you were to have those two things, if you have the 6 million from the homestead and that loophole closed, I believe that we can balance the budget without raising taxes and actually add some city services where they're really needed, particularly in permitting and in code enforcement and in parking enforcement.
Okay, good. Our next question is on permitting. Tampa has been considered a difficult city to go through in terms of the permitting process. What will you do for the city to earn a reputation as a safe but permit process friendly location?
So that is the reason that I just mentioned that in the last question. That is something that we deal with on city council on a regular basis, and certainly I hear a lot about in the community. The problem is that over the past 8 to 10 years, we have cut the budget to the point where we do not have the personnel in the permitting department to handle the amount of work that is there. And we've just got to correct it. We've got to get people in there in order to do the work. It is absolutely a matter of resources. I am concerned that as these years have passed, we've lost institutional knowledge in a lot of these departments, and that's going to be part of our challenge as well, to make sure that not only do we hire good people, but that they have the knowledge necessary to do this kind of work competently.
Good. Next question is on home rule. Local governments across the state have been critical of the legislature in recent years. Do you agree that preemption has become a problem in Tallahassee? If yes, how would you work to establish a productive relationship with our legislative delegation?
Well, I absolutely do think it's become a problem. I think that local governments ought to be able to make decisions for themselves on a wide variety of topics. And I think that ultimately it comes down to building the relationship with the legislators, both in Tallahassee and in Washington. I think that it's a very, very critical thing for the mayor to do, to be actively involved in promoting and lobbying for legislation that is important, not just for the city, but for the region. And I will absolutely make that a top priority of my role as mayor going forward.
Okay, good. Our next question is about economic development. Utilization of public-private partnerships continue to be an asset for local governments across the country. What opportunities for P3s do you see in the city of Tampa?
Well, I think that more than anything, the All for Transportation dollars are going to open up a wide variety of options. We have an enormous amount of work to do in this city related to infrastructure. We have to build out the transportation system that we ultimately settle on. And as I said earlier, if you want to see my ideas related to transportation, if you go to harry2019.com, I have a 4-page, very detailed transportation plan that addresses things like how you actually are going to move around downtown when there's a show at the Performing Arts Center, a convention in town, and a hockey game all at once. These are the types of problems that we need to solve. And I think that there's no question that in many cases, the private sector, Brightline's a great example. Brightline's going to come right in and be the catalyst for us creating a downtown central station. And if you go again to my transportation plan, you can see all the different things that we could link people to at that station.
Okay. Next question, leadership. What is the role of Tampa's mayor? How does that role evolve over the duration of your term?
Well, I think that Mayor Buckhorn has done an extraordinary job of making the city feel good about itself and promoting our best foot forward in the sense of including everyone, being sensitive to diversity, being a welcoming, friendly, loving place to live. And I think that the mayor has a real role in contributing to that culture. I think the mayor also has to face people honestly and tell them the truth about what our challenges are, but offer optimistic, creative, and grounded solutions to taking us forward. And then finally, I would say that the mayor should be a voice for reasonable public discourse. I think all of us, no matter what our politics, are lamenting the lack of civility in Washington. And I think we can be better on a local level. I think we can believe in ourselves and be respectful of each other and disagree without being disagreeable, and the mayor sets the tone.
Good. You've talked a lot about this, but we have a question about transportation. We all have lists for transportation projects now that we have the revenue from the sales tax increase. but I want to hear more in your case. I want to hear more of the first and most important transportation investment you want to see.
Well, like I said earlier, the downtown central station to me is at the very core of moving people around, because it's not enough just to get people into downtown using transit. You have to be able to get them around downtown and connect them to West Shore and the airport and other places in the region, particularly South Tampa and New Tampa, which can be accessed through the CSX line. So I think that at the very first, we need to start talking to CSX about what we can do to move north and south. I also believe that we should create a pedestrian and bike trail along the right-of-way that CSX and the Expressway Authority already own, because I think that would solve another transportation problem. Finally, though, I would say that safety is a major priority, with the fact that students going to school, you know, if you live within 2 miles of the school, you're not eligible for the bus. We must provide safe passage, safe sidewalks, crosswalks, signalization, lighting to get kids to school. Again, harry2019.com. I have a very detailed plan about it.
Okay. We've touched on several important policies, but before we wrap up, is there a priority you have that we didn't discuss or something you would like to reemphasize?
Yes, I think that it's very important that we make major investments in our water infrastructure. That's freshwater delivery. Many of you live in places where you see water main breaks. We need to make sure that we're investing in rebuilding our water system. That's gonna be a major priority. Also, going the next step to ameliorate flooding, dealing with the rise not just in sea levels, but also in the water table, because the bond rating agencies have told us if you do not make investments in this kind of infrastructure, your bond rating is going to get affected. We should get out ahead of this, protect MacDill Air Force Base, protect Tampa General Hospital, protect our tax base, invest in water infrastructure.
Very good. Where can you go to learn more about your position on this issues most important today? You mentioned that, but remind everybody again.
Yes, so again, my website is harry2019.com, and you can go there. I have information on a lot of different things. I'm going to be releasing an affordable housing plan and some more information related to water infrastructure in the coming days. Transportation is already there, and I look forward to receiving your questions and comments and additions, because we can always use more good ideas. And I just want to say that I'd be very grateful for your support on March 5th. Harry Cohen for mayor.
Terrific. On behalf of 1,400 of the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for your time today. We thank you for your service and your willingness to continue to serve our city.
Bob, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry. This concludes our interview with Harry Cohen, candidate for mayor for the city of Tampa.